How come everybody's still on the screen?
That's good. We got numbers going up. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, everybody. I know it's been a while, but our standard operating procedure is we wait 3 to 5 minutes while people log in. So no fancy screen tonight, just our ugly faces.
Just us.
Lots to cover tonight. We'll be getting started here in about 3 or 4 minutes.
Tonight's meeting shouldn't be all that long. We just want to update everybody, and we'll mention again the videos getting recorded, and it'll be posted. So if you know anybody who's having trouble getting on tonight or can't get here in time, we'll post it to the website.
Okay, everybody, we're just letting folks log on. The numbers are still moving, so just hang tight, grab a beverage. Like Doug said, we're not going to go too long tonight. Got a pretty tight agenda, but we're going to cover a lot of material, and we'll get going here in about 3 minutes.
John, are you done with the rain in Texas?
We are. We've had a lot of rain down there. It was one of the driest summers on record, the driest August ever. We were almost 11 inches behind, and we had one storm on one day.
And all of it came at once, huh?
All of it came at once. Yeah, I think we got 15 inches of rain in that one storm. So pretty amazing. All right, if you're logging on, we're a couple of minutes away from getting started. As soon as we see the numbers sort of slack off, we'll go ahead. Okay, Doug, why don't we go ahead and get rolling? Just so you all know, we are recording this. It will be on the tccbsa.com website. My name is John Humphrey. I am joined by my co-chairman, Doug Kennedy, and Rich Pachulski.
Good evening, everybody.
It's been a while. There's been a lot going on. You're going to find out tonight why it's been a while and why it might yet still be a while. So we're going to try to inform you all as much as we can. Doug and I are the MCs. Rich is our lead counsel at Pachulski, Stang, Zeal, and Jones. And we're not going to do Q&A because we're on this path with the court that Rich will go through. But you can send questions to TCC questions at pszjlaw.com. So we're going to try to put some of those Q&As up on the website.
Yeah, and John, let me interrupt you. We really want people to send an email in. Again, it's TCC questions at pszjlaw.com. And what we want to do is get a feel for the questions that people have, so we can find out, a lot of people have this same question or something like it, so we can start to keep a rolling FAQ on the website. So please don't be shy about those questions emailed in.
Right. So unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the Bankruptcy Court has approved the plan that we all have been fighting so hard for over the last 2.5 years. We're going to find out the difference between the word approved and recommended by the judge, Judge Silverstein, and confirmed. So there's a whole process to go through. Keep in mind that we're not attorneys. We don't represent you. Please don't ask us legal questions. PSCJ, they represent the committee. And if you're represented by counsel, you might want to ask them those questions as well. It's just been tough for us because there hasn't been much to talk about because there hasn't been any decisions that have been made. It's almost like, as Doug likes to say, the sausage was being made, and until it was finished, we didn't have much to report. So it's, pretty exciting that we've gotten to this place. If you sort of think about the history of this, when we got the no vote, we improved youth protection, we got a little more money, and we got the trustee that we really wanted. And I think you guys are going to really appreciate that as time goes on. Think about the trust as a multi-billion-dollar company that has to run and operate, and it's going to take some time for it to get up to speed once the district court approves the plan. So I understand your frustrations. We share them. We know it's been a while, and we know it's going to be a while yet. So with that, just keep in mind that our job here at TCC is to represent you, all of our survivor constituents, and give you the best information that we have based on where we think we are when we actually have a decision. When we're in the back and forth of negotiations and we're not sure how things are going to come out, we're not going to talk about it because it could be different tomorrow, and we don't want to frustrate you that way. And of course, we don't give you personal legal advice. So with that, Doug, I'd like to turn it over to you and just talk about, where we've been and why we've had some delay and sort of recap, the last several months.
Sure, happy to. Thanks, John. Before I make some comments, he won't do this himself, but I do want to recognize John Humphrey. He and a number of other survivors were involved in a documentary on Hulu called Leave No Trace. It's an important documentary. When we hope you'll watch it. It's not going to be the only one that's going to be out there in the future, but John, well done to all those survivors that were part of that too. And it's important that all of our stories get out there. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Doug.
So the big question is, where's the TCC been? And it is frustrating. I want to echo something that John said. This is our first rodeo with bankruptcy and how long things take. And as a survivor, it's been, for most of us, taken decades, and it's taking longer, and it's taking longer than we expected. And I think we really bumped up against that in the last 6 months. We last met with everyone before, I guess, the confirmation hearing started. And quite frankly, we did not think that a judge's opinion was going to take 106 days, but it was a complex case that required a lot of work on her part, and it took 106 days. So that was 3 months right there. When that came out, the TCC immediately said to our professionals, well, let's get on a town hall and start to discuss this. And they wisely said, not so fast. This is a 260-page opinion that the professionals have to look at, and then reminded us that it was just that. It wasn't a decision, it was an opinion. And the opinion helped to sort of guide the parties to go back to court to try and see if they could kind of push this over the goal line. So it was not appropriate for us to get on for a town hall and kind of start conjecturing about what that meant. So that's kind of the sort of where we got stuck. And we understand people's frustration, and sometimes we find ourselves in a situation where we wish we could say more, but there's mediation confidentiality. What we want you to understand is, as John mentioned, we have been laser focused throughout this whole process, even when we haven't been doing town halls, on the value of the trust, trust governance, and youth protection. So I want you to understand that even though we haven't been having town halls, I can guarantee you there have been 1,000 emails and text messages and meetings that have still been occurring, and our professionals have been all over this to try and push it across to get us where we are right now. The last thing I want to say is that early on in this process, a wise old bankruptcy professional said to us, every survivor wants 2 questions answered. How much am I going to get, and when am I going to get it? And we're aware of that. And what we want to do now is we want to start to talk about not so much, what happened to this point, because it's taken a while to get here, but now that we're here, what's the next phase of this bankruptcy going to be? So thanks for your patience. We're going to continue to talk more about in a little bit about what we're going to have in future town halls. But right now, John, I will turn it back to you to kind of talk a little bit high level about this plan timeline.
Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to Rich here in just a second. But if you sort of go back to March, that's when the confirmation trial actually began. It concluded mid-April in 5.5 weeks. And then Judge Silverstein issued her written decision on July 29th. So that was 3.5 months. And then all of the parties negotiated with the judge and the mediators. And it finally got ended with a plan being approved and submitted on September 8th. So that was about 6 weeks. So the question you probably have, and one of the things I will say is that, we live in a great country, and we have the rule of law, and that rule of law allows people who disagree with a decision to voice that and have a path. And so when we talk about an appeals process, not everybody's happy with the plan that Judge Silverstein approved. And so there's going to be a process. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Rich Pachowski to outline kind of where do we go from here. Are you muted, Rich? Unmute.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it. So I want to start with, before the discussing the timeline and where we're going from here, what I think is important, because the judge did have a very extensive, thoughtful decision, as John said, on July 29th. And then, as you can imagine, there were different interpretations of the opinion, and there were objections to it, and the judge finally resolved those by entering a confirmation order on September 8th. Now, what I want to point out, and I know it's frustrating because of the timeline, is what the TCC and I think other constituents push for, particularly the TCC, are 3 things in a general framework. One was that we have an independent trust, and that is, the judge confirmed that. Second, that we have a path to maximum recovery from insurers and to get the maximum compensation, fair compensation for the survivors. That is in the plan, and confirmed by the order. And the third was a thoughtful and transparent youth protection program, and that's all been approved. So I wanted to make it clear that while it's hundreds of pages, very complicated, confirmation order is pretty complicated, those were the 3 goals of the TCC, and we have that. But that doesn't mean we start tomorrow. We couldn't do it anyway, because we basically have a startup of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, because there's approximately $2.5 billion that's going to be in place ultimately. And there are lots of other insurance carriers, which is part of the issue, that will add to, we suspect, the $2.5 billion. So where does that leave us? As John said, there's a mechanism that parties who are dissatisfied can appeal. Now, for the trust to really go up and running, you have to have what's known as an effective date. And in some cases, the effective date can be 2 weeks after the confirmation order. That's not what we have here, for a variety of reasons that are fairly technical and really not the point. we really cannot get an effective date unless one of two things happens. The district court, where there will be appeals, and I'll get into that in a second, the district court affirms the bankruptcy court, and then we can try to get an effective date, and I'll get through that in a second. Why that even if everything works out perfectly, that may not, we still might not have an effective date. And the second is if there are certain parties, which include the TCC and others, who can waive the requirement of district court order, the insurance companies can then run in and seek a stay, and the district court could grant it or not grant it. So there are lots of issues that are there, but we are not at the effective date. Now, do we think there will be appeals? The answer is yes. We know there will be. The good news, and this is again one of the issues why we didn't think there should be a town hall, is there was no deal on how the appeals would be done. There are going to be multiple parties who are going to appeal. There are 17 insurance companies. There are actually a couple of survivor law firms that may appeal. The United States trustee might appeal. We know certain absolutely will, and we think others might. So what happens if they appeal? Under a deal that's been made, which will cut the process down, even though it may not sound that way, is appeals have to be filed by September 22nd, and the briefing has to take place by December 21st, so approximately 3 months. After that happens, the district court judge will set oral argument. Again, now I'm going to give you my best guess, but I would think that and there's no guarantee. I had certain opinions as to how long the bankruptcy court order would take, and it took longer, but I think the judge spent an enormous amount of time making sure that she got it right. But the district court, if I had to guess, would be sometime in the first quarter of 2023. After that, and it's very similar to what we went through with the bankruptcy court, the judge has to decide. If you ask people, they'll probably tell you the judge will decide somewhere between 30 days and 120 days after that. So it could be the beginning of the first quarter or the second quarter of 2023, or it could be the beginning of the third quarter, frankly. We don't think it will take that long, but I don't want to kid anybody. I don't really guess in this or most cases what district court judges or other judges will do. They're going to do what they think is appropriate. But let's assume the district court affirms it. And let's assume that happens during the summer. In theory, we could then go effective. Why wouldn't that happen? I have little doubt for that if we have not settled with the parties who have appealed, they will appeal to what's known as the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. If they do that, there is no automatic stay, and there is no need for anyone to waive. You can go effective unless the Circuit Court of Appeals decides to grant a stay. If there is a stay, we then cannot go effective, and it could take, to be very frank, in excess of a year to then go effective into 2024. I'm hopeful that does not happen. I'm hopeful that if we went that far, the Third Circuit would not grant the stay, but there's no guarantee. Now, so everybody understands, so it's not only frustrating to people on this town hall or not on the town hall, it's frustrating for all of us because of the time that people have been waiting. This case has been going on for 2.5 years, and now we have to wait longer because of an appellate process. But during that time, even though the trust can't be up, if we had an effective date today, the trust wouldn't be up immediately. There have to be an enormous number of people who are hired to review the claims. There has to be a claim process. There has to be a questionnaire that's proposed. There has to be, as the judge proposed, an audit function. So there are lots of things that have to be done, and we're going to do the best we can to get as much of that done during this period before the effective date. But how much of that can be done is still up in the air. All the claimants groups are doing everything we can to work together to get that done sooner than later. So that would be something that we would hope to address in a future town hall when we get a better idea of how the appellate process is working and what we can do. But everybody should be assured that we are very focused on this. And as Doug said, how much and how long, I'd love to tell you the answer to those questions, but I think the good news is we got a very, very favorable result for the survivors. And the not as good news is it's still going to take time to go through the process. So that's my summary. I've tried to make it as coherent as I can. I know we've spent a lot of time working through a lot of the issues, but I at least wanted to explain what the timeline might look like, and at least the 2 levels of appeal. The question would be, could it go to the United States Supreme Court? Because there's some interesting issues. I'm doubtful, but there's no guarantee that wouldn't happen. But I think that is much less likely than it's likely. So with that, Doug and John, I don't know if you have any.
So the bottom line is, we're talking 6 to 18 months.
We're talking at least 6 to 18 months. Yes, it could be less. It could be theoretically less if there's a waiver of the district court affirmation, and it could be more depending on how long the district court or circuit court. But I think 6 to 8. If someone asks what is the highest probability, I would tell you it's 6 to 18 months.
Fair enough. Doug?
Thanks, John. So I want to repeat one thing, and that is, if you have questions about this process, Rich went through it, and please send questions, email them to tccquestions@pscjlaw.com. We want to collect those and come out with an FAQ. I just want to talk about what you can expect from the TCC moving ahead. As this creeps along through the review process, the appeals process, if there's significant information that unexpected information, significant changes, we'll get back on and do a town hall. But one of the things we wanted to leave you with tonight is the understanding that we're deeply engaged. We'll have town halls when it's most necessary. So from a bankruptcy process, we think there's not going to be a lot to talk about as this kind of chugs along. However, the judge has approved a plan that includes designated trustees and administrators. And one of the things we want to do is we do want to schedule a town hall to start to introduce you to some of those people. Judge Hauser has been designated as the trustee. I've had the opportunity to meet her and was incredibly impressed. And I think survivors are going to feel really good about that choice. Michael Reagan and Diane Welsh are going to be the claims administrators. So we'd like to have a meeting where we can introduce them, ask them questions, have that video posted as well. Once the plan becomes effective, then the TCC will be disbanded. But as Rich mentioned, that's going to be a while from now, and we've got a lot of work to do in the meantime. One of the other things we're doing is John and I have been discussing, and TCC have been discussing ways to maybe get some focus groups together to figure out and find out from all survivors where their greatest needs are, so that we can start to collect those, think about how to address them, but more importantly, be able to pass that information on to the trust as well. And I want to say this. I had a survivor call me up today and said, I know we have a town hall meeting tonight. Are we going to get good news? And I was honest with him. The TCC, John has been honest with everyone from the start, and that is tonight's not a lot of good news. Nobody wanted to turn on tonight and hear 6 to 18 months, trust me. But we want you to understand what's going on so you can start to come to grips with that a little bit. And we share your frustration. Trust me, none of us thought we would be here this long at this point. And the very last thing I want to say is we do have mental health resources up on the TCC website. We'll continue to build on those as well. We want you to stay strong and get as much help as you need. And the TCC wants to provide information for you, and that's what we're trying to do. So hang in there, and we will have some more meetings coming up, and we'll post those dates on the website.
Thanks,
John?
Doug. Yeah, so to wrap it up, I think there is some really good news. I think Rich outlined the 3 things that we fought for and substantially improved it. I think you guys are going to really appreciate Barbara Hauser and the integrity that she has managed her entire career on. The youth protection program is fabulous. So there's some great things to be happy about. I don't know if anybody read the judge's opinion. It's 281 pages. But she was very concerned about fraud. So there's going to be a fraud protection process that gets put in there so that we make sure that resources go to survivors who have had sexual abuse. So there's a lot going on, and the focus group idea is something that stay tuned. We're going to figure out how to communicate that out there. But we've been approached by several organizations that aren't really sure exactly what survivors need. And so we're going to try to figure that out. And
John, you make a really good point, and that is the frustrating bad news is the time, but the really good news is that, we're in a very strong position. There was a lot in the judge's decision that's really good for survivors, and it's agonizing to wait for it to happen, but that's where we are. Yeah.
So keep an eye on tccbsa.com. Once again, questions to tccquestions@pszjlaw.com. We'll try to respond to those as promptly as possible. And as Doug said, try to put an FAQ out on the website. So with that, I just want to thank Rich and his team for all the work that they've done lately in getting this pushed over the goal line. It's actually very exciting when you think about when we started. The goal was to get a bankruptcy judge to confirm this, approve this plan, and we've done that. So now we're going to go into the next phase, which is the appeals process. So stay tuned. And as always, Doug, thanks for being my co-chair and all the work that you do. And to the rest of the committee members, we really appreciate you guys.
Thank
So
you, brother.
with that,
Stay strong, everyone.
good night.